It's a classic Canadian scene that lines over 20 million acres of farmland. Canola fields soon ready for harvest. A $43 billion business, but Canada's second biggest customer, is now preparing to slap on major new tariffs. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce announcing a 75.8% anti-dumping tax on all Canadian canola, starting Thursday.
Prairie farmers woke up to a nightmare this August. China just slammed Canadian canola with a crushing 75.8% tariffs. It's the kind of move that doesn't just hurt numbers on a spreadsheet, it destroys lives. Canada grows more canola than almost anyone else in the world. Canada ships billions of dollars worth to China every year. Now, with the stroke of a pen, Beijing has made Canadian canola too expensive for Chinese buyers. The market is basically closed. This didn't happen in a vacuum. It's the latest punch in a trade war that's been building for over a year, and Canadian farmers are caught right in the middle. Here's how we got to this mess. Back in August 2024, Canada decided to hit Chinese electric cars with a 100% tariff. That's double the price, making Chinese EVs unaffordable for most Canadians.
For the industry.
The Chinese retaliating after Canada increased tariffs on steel in July and put a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles under the Trudeau government. Both moves done to align Canadian policy with the Americans.
Beijing didn't like that, not one bit. They started an investigation into Canadian canola in September 2024. Then in March 2025, China dropped the first bomb. They put 100% tariffs on Canadian canola oil and meal. But they were not done. Canada made things worse in July by adding tariffs on Chinese steel. That really made China angry. So on August 12th, they finished the job. They hit canola seed with that massive 75.8% tariff. Think about the timing here. This happened right during harvest season. Canadian farmers are pulling their crops out of the ground, and suddenly their biggest customer just disappeared. Let's talk about what this really means in dollars and cents. China bought 5.9 million tons of Canadian canola seed in 2024. That's worth about $5 billion. To put that in perspective, China buys two-thirds of all the canola seed Canada exports. The canola industry supports over 200,000 jobs in Canada. It brings in $43 billion in economic activity every year. This is not just about farmers in the fields. It's about truck drivers, railway workers, port workers, and plant workers in cities. When the tariff news hit, canola prices crashed. They fell 6.5% in a single day. That's the biggest drop since June. Grain buyers stopped making offers to farmers immediately. They didn't know what to do with crops they couldn't sell. Right now, there are between 200,000 and 400,000 tons of canola meal sitting in Chinese ports. Chinese buyers don't want to pay the huge tariffs. So the product just sits there, trying up money that farmers desperately need. Let's step away from the big numbers for a moment. Think about what this means for the actual people. Rick White runs the Canadian Canola Growers Association. He says farmers are stuck with crops they can't sell at prices that made sense when they planted them. Gunter Joka from the Wheat Growers puts it even more bluntly. He says prairie farmers have become collateral damage in Ottawa's trade fires. These farmers didn't start this war, but they are the ones paying the price. Picture a farmer in Saskatchewan. He planted canola in the spring, expecting to sell it to China like he has for years. He took out loans for seeds, fertilizers, and equipment. Now, harvest time is here, and his biggest customer is gone. He still owes the bank, but his income just disappeared.
Little solace for the 40,000 farmers who grow canola annually, including Ryan Hofford on his family farm in Bozeman, Manitoba.
My bids, local bids at the elevator here have dropped about $1 a bushel.
That's thanks to canola prices dropping nearly 5% on Tuesday, which Hofford believes will cost his family thousands. Add in a strong crop from across much of the prairies, and prices could continue to drop.
There's more supply, price goes down, so I think I worry canola producers are going to be in for a little bit of a rough ride here.
This isn't the first move from China that's hurt Canadian farmers, with a 100% tariff on canola oil implemented last year.
So that effectively closes the Chinese market to Canadian canola and canola products at this time.
The timing makes it even worse. You can't just switch crops in the middle of harvest. Farmers are committed. They have to find new buyers, often at much lower prices, or they have to store the canola and hope things get better. storage costs money they don't have. China says they had good reasons for these tariffs. Their trade ministry claims Canada dumps canola on the Chinese market. Dumping means selling products below fair market value to hurt competitors. China also says the Canadian government gives unfair help to canola farmers. They point to subsidies and special policies that they claim make Canadian canola artificially cheap. The Canadian government strongly disagrees. Trade Minister Maninder Sidhu and Agriculture Minister Heath McNaughton released a statement saying Canada doesn't dump canola. They say Canadian farmers follow all the rules and produce high quality products. The Canola Council of Canada also rejects these claims. They believe this is really about politics, not trade rules. China is using trade as a weapon to pressure Canada on other issues. Canadian farmers have seen this movie before. In 2019 and 2020, China blocked Canadian canola for over a year. They claimed to find pests in shipments, but most experts think it was really about politics. Canadian canola production dropped 8% in 2019. Farmers had to store crops for months, paying extra costs and interest. Many switched to growing other crops. Some went out of business entirely. The lesson from that crisis was clear. Depending too much on one big customer is dangerous, but finding other buyers who can match China's massive appetite is incredibly hard. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe isn't sitting around waiting for Ottawa to fix this. He's going straight to China himself. Moe is leading a 3-day mission to Beijing, trying to negotiate relief from these tariffs.
That will have a devastating impact on the price points for Saskatchewan's canola industry, and I would say ultimately Saskatchewan's ag producers.
He's not going alone. Prime Minister Mark Carney's office sent Parliamentary Secretary Cody Blows along. This shows the federal government understands how serious this is. Agriculture Minister Heath McDonald says the government is working hard to support farmers, but he admits it's hard to know what China really wants. Are these tariffs about trade rules or are they just political pressure? The big question now is where else can Canada sell all this canola? The short answer is nowhere that can fully replace China. Australia might benefit from this mess. They are the world's second biggest canola exporter. But China blocked them in 2020 over plant disease concerns. Now China might let Australia back in to replace Canadian supplies. The European Union needs more canola too. Their own harvest fell short this year, creating demand for imports. Japan and South Korea also buy canola, but not nearly enough to replace China. China's 2024 imports were equal to 95% of Australia's entire export program. No other country or region can absorb that much Canadian canola quickly. Here's the problem most people don't think about. Where do you put millions of tons of canola that suddenly can't be sold? Farmers need storage space fast. Canola can be stored for up to 10 months if you manage moisture levels carefully. But storage costs money and farmers are already under financial pressure. Some farmers are paying for commercial storage. Others are building new bins on their farm. All of this costs money they were not planning to spend. And the longer canola sits in storage, the more money farmers lose. This canola crisis isn't happening in isolation. Canada now has trade problems with both China and the United States. That's the world's two biggest economies. For a trading nation like Canada, this is extremely dangerous. The timing is also suspicious. China announced these tariffs just weeks before Canada is supposed to review its electric vehicle tariffs in October. Some experts think China is trying to pressure Canada into backing down. China has also targeted other Canadian products. They have hit peas, pork, and seafood with various restrictions. The pattern is clear. China is using trade to send political messages. China has until September to make a final decision on these tariffs. They could change the rate, remove the tariffs entirely, or make them permanent. They also have the option to extend their investigation for another 6 months. Industry leaders are pushing Ottawa to act fast. They want high level talks with Beijing to roll back the tariffs. They are also calling for a dedicated agricultural trade envoy to prevent future disputes. Canada needs to reduce its dependence on any single market. That means building stronger relationships with Europe, Japan, South Korea, and Latin America. It also means investing more in processing canola at home instead of just shipping raw crops abroad. The stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't just about one crop or one industry. It's about Canada's reputation as a reliable supplier of the food to the world. It's about the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of Canadians. And it's about whether Canada can navigate an increasingly hostile global trade environment. Right now, prairie farmers are paying the price for a trade war they didn't start. The question is whether their government can get them out of it before the damage becomes permanent.
The U.S. Embassy in Kyiv is warning right now about possible Russian significant attack on Kyiv. What's your message for Putin?
I have a message for both parties. Get this war ended. We're losing 5,000 soldiers a week, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers, and other people also, by the way. And I say, get this stupid war finished. That's my message for both of them.
Donald Trump just made the boldest move of his presidency. He is demanding that Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Zelensky sit down face to face to end this devastating war. And for the first time in nearly 3 years of conflict, both leaders might actually say yes. Trump's announcement came after an extraordinary day at the White House. 7 European leaders flew in to meet with Ukraine's president. 7 European leaders flew in to meet with Ukraine's president. But the real drama happened when Trump picked up the phone and called Putin directly from the Oval Office. That 40-minute conversation changed everything.
All of the wonderful things that took place today. We've had a very successful day thus far. Important discussions as we work to end the killing and stop the war in Ukraine. We're all working for the same goal. Very simple goal. We want to stop the killing, get this settled. I've just had the honor of being with President Zelensky and all of the discussions that we've had. We covered a lot of territory. And I spoke indirectly with President Putin today. We're going to call President Putin right after this meeting. I'm sure we're going to have a solid meeting, good meeting, maybe a great meeting, and we're going to try and work out a trilat after that and see if we can get it finished.
Let's break down what just happened and why this matters so much. Before we dive into the details, please like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth geopolitical analysis. After meeting Putin in Alaska last Friday, Trump thought he could get a quick ceasefire. That didn't work. Putin had different ideas. The Russian leader told Trump he wanted a full peace deal, not just a temporary pause in fighting. And Trump, he completely shifted his strategy. Now Trump is pushing for something unprecedented. A direct meeting between two leaders who haven't spoken since Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Think about that. These men have been at war for almost 4 years. Over 1 million people have been killed or wounded, and they've never sat in the same room together. Monday's White House meeting was fascinating to watch. Remember Trump's last meeting with Zelensky in February? It was a disaster. Trump basically told the Ukrainian president to be more grateful and accused of him risking World War III.
Now you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What do you-
III.
what do you
You're
speak about?
gambling with
What do you
World
speak
War
about?
III.
The meeting ended early with Zelensky being shown the door. This time was completely different. Zelensky ditched his usual military gear and wore a formal dark suit. Trump loved it. The Ukrainian president kept saying thank you and stayed quiet during the public portions. Both men were clearly trying to avoid another blow-up.
In the same suit. You see, I changed, you are not.
Maybe yours is much better. President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good on
I
you.
said to the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's
I remember.
But here's what's really interesting. After Trump met with all the European leaders, he immediately called Putin right there in the Oval Office. And according to Trump, Putin agreed to meet Zelensky one-on-one, followed by a three-way meeting with Trump himself. The Europeans are thrilled about this development. NATO's Secretary General called it a major breakthrough. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said they made a real progress. Even the usual cautious Germans seemed optimistic. But there's a huge problem. Russia hasn't actually confirmed any of this. When reporters asked Moscow about the planned summit, Russian officials gave very vague answers. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said any meeting would need to be prepared gradually, starting with the expert-level talks. That's diplomatic speak for don't hold your breath. Putin's ad only mentioned raising the level of representatives in peace talks. He didn't say anything about Putin meeting Zelensky directly. This could be Russia playing games again, but it could mean Putin is genuinely considering it. So where would this historic meeting happen? That's another challenge. Putin has an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court. Most European countries would have to arrest him if he shows up. That limits the options significantly. Prime Minister Viktor Orban is Trump's ally and Putin's friend. Budapest hosted the 1994 agreement where Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in exchange for security promises. The irony is painful. Switzerland offered to host and give Putin immunity. France suggested Geneva, but Trump's security team is reportedly planning for Budapest. Now let's talk about the biggest issue. What happens if they actually meet? Putin wants Ukraine to give up massive amounts of territory. He is demanding all of Donetsk and Luhansk regions, including areas Russia doesn't even control yet. He also wants Ukraine banned from joining NATO forever. Zelensky can't agree to this. Ukraine's constitution requires a referendum to give up any territory, and polls show the vast majority of Ukrainians reject giving Russia any land. It's not just politics, it's the law. There's also a deeper problem. International lawyers say any peace deal forced by military conquest is illegal under the UN Charter. If Ukraine gives up territory because Russia used force to take it, that violates the basic rules that have governed international relations since World War II. But here's where Trump's security guarantees come in. This might be the real game changer. Trump promised that Ukraine would get strong security protections if they make peace. He ruled out sending American troops, but he's open to providing air support. Think missile defense systems, fighter jets, maybe even enforcing a no-fly zone. European countries are ready to put troops on the ground. France, Germany, and Britain are all considering it. The idea is to create something like NATO's Article 5 protection. An attack on Ukraine would trigger a response from all its partners. This could work. It gives Ukraine real security without requiring territorial concessions, and it gives Putin something he can claim as victory, keeping Ukraine out of NATO while still allowing Western protection. But there's massive trust problem. Russia has broken every agreement it's ever signed with Ukraine. In 2014, Putin promised to respect Ukraine's borders, then annexed Crimea. In 2022, Russia launched a full invasion despite multiple treaties guaranteeing Ukraine's sovereignty. Why would this time be different? The timing is also crucial. Just hours after the Washington meetings, Russia launched its biggest attack in over a month. 270 drones and 10 missiles hit Ukrainian energy facilities. At least 10 people died.
Injured when missiles and drones struck historic center of Lviv. And President Zelensky said an American-owned electronics company was among civilian infrastructure hit in Mykolaiv near the Hungarian border.
Putin is sending a clear message. He is negotiating from a position of strength while still killing Ukrainians. This makes European leaders very nervous about trusting him. Trump seems to understand the challenge. He admitted Putin might not want to make a deal after all. Trump said they'll find out in the next couple of weeks. If Putin doesn't cooperate, Trump warned he'll face a rough situation. Though Trump didn't specify what that means, the European leaders are playing a smart game here. They are enthusiastically supporting Trump's peace efforts while preparing for failure. If Putin refuses to negotiate seriously, they want Trump to blame Russia, not Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron called Putin a predator. Finland's president said Putin is really to be trusted. These are not the words of leaders who expect success. So what happens next? Trump is arranging the meeting logistics. His team is coordinating with both sides. NATO military leaders are meeting virtually to discuss deployment options. The so-called coalition of willing is firming up plans for security guarantees. But the fundamental positions haven't changed. Putin wants territory and guarantees that Ukraine never joins the West. Zelensky wants his land back and security protections. Those positions are incompatible. There's another complication. Trump's negotiating style is, in his own words, more instinct than process. He makes decisions quickly based on gut feelings. That worked with Putin in Alaska, where they apparently got along well. But it might not work when the hard details get negotiated. The stakes couldn't be higher. If this works, Trump gets credit for ending Europe's deadliest conflict in 80 years. He might even win a Nobel Peace Prize, which he clearly wants. If it fails, the war continues with no clear path to resolution. Ukraine keeps losing people and territory. Russia keeps getting sanctioned and isolated. And Trump looks like he promised more than he could deliver. Here's the bottom line. This is the most serious peace effort since the war began. Trump has Putin's attention and Zelensky's cooperation. European allies are united behind the effort. The pieces are all in place. But wanting peace and achieving it are very different things. Putin has shown no willingness to give up his territorial gains. Zelensky can't constitutionally surrender Ukrainian land. And both sides have reasons to keep fighting. The next few weeks will tell us everything. Either Trump pulls off the diplomatic coup of the century, or we learn that some wars can't be ended with phone calls and summits. Putin holds all the cards here. and everyone knows it. What are your thoughts on the matter? Please let me know in the comment section, and also consider pushing the subscribe button